Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to please take a seat? And thank you for joining us today. Very warm welcome from me. I am Michaela Erbenova, Deputy Director of the IMF Institute for Capacity Development, and I'm here to welcome you to this Peek into Training event on the Special Drawing Rights online course, which opens the series of dedicated capacity development events at these annual meetings. Capacity development is the core mandate of the IMF. Historically, it's been delivered through in-person technical assistance and training, but for more than a decade, we've also been offering free online courses as part of our capacity development initiatives. Our partnership with the government of Japan has been very instrumental in growing the online learning program for a small pilot 10 years ago to a comprehensive catalog of online courses. Thanks to Japan's generous support, we now offer 100 online courses in 6 different languages. Already some 62,000 government officials around the world have successfully completed these courses. We are deeply grateful to the government of Japan for their unwavering commitment to the program. To get a quick sense of the program, let us have a quick look at a short video. And I'm now delighted to introduce you to Mr. Kentaro Ogata, Deputy Vice Minister of Finance for International Affairs at the Ministry of Finance in Japan. Mr. Ogata will tell us about the importance of online learning for Japan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Michaela, for the kind introduction. I'm Kentaro Ogata from the Ministry of Finance. I'm quite delighted to speak in front of you on this very nice online learning event. Taking this opportunity, let me start from explaining to you why we are so keen to support the IMF's capacity development activities. Everybody in this room, I believe, knows that the capacity development is one of the 3 pillars of the IMF core activities, together with the surveillance and the lending or financing assistances. But you may think that the capacity development is just additional services to the membership, independent of the surveillance and the lending. But we, the Japanese government, has been believing that it is not just additional service to the membership, but it is integrated core pillars of the fund. At the same time, we know that the situations are different from countries, and we don't have one-size-fits-all solutions to all the challenges that the membership faces. And the challenges that the membership faces is changing over time. So we have to explore new approaches or new modalities to the capacity development. And that's exactly where the donors like Japan can play significant and unique roles. The fund has to service all the membership, whereas we can identify some innovative places where we can make use of our own contributions. And that's exactly why we have been so keen to support the capacity developments. And in more recent years, the challenges that member is facing has become more complex and intertwined. And that's exactly why our partnership with the fund has broadened the scope and they expanded to new innovative areas. And this online learning is one of those areas, and then we are so proud that the online learning has become quite important vehicle for the capacity development. As you show on the short video, the online learning is really accessible to everybody. It's flexible, so it's been used in many countries in many different languages. And then taking some example in the Asian regions, there is a SDI, the Singapore Training Institute in Asia, in Singapore. And they are actually introducing a new modalities, like asking the participants in the in-person programs to take the online course and then making that the online course as a prerequisite for the in-person engagements. And that has been quite successful in enhancing the outcome of the in-person engagements. So that's one way of utilizing the online learning courses. And that will ultimately make the effectiveness of the capacity development activities. So in the course of integrating the capacity development activities to the other two core fund activities, the surveillance and the financing assistances, we are expanding the partnership with the fund, and we are so proud that we have been so successful in this endeavor. So we are quite looking forward to further enhancing the use of the online learning and helping integrate the capacity development activities with the activities, the surveillance and the financing programs. So as an opening, let me stop here. But as a long-standing, or perhaps I should say the longest-standing partner of the IMF in the areas of the capacity development, we are so committed, strongly committed to continuing our support to the online learning programs. So with that, let me conclude my opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ogata-san, for your very kind words and for the strong support for our program. And today we are excited to provide a peek into the very newly launched online course on special drawing rights. This course was developed by IMF's Finance Department together with the Institute for Capacity Development, and it is the first of many future courses on finance topics from the IMF. Once again, we are grateful for the generous support from the government of Japan that made this course possible. In this presentation, you will hear from our experts on special drawing rights. Special drawing right is an international reserve asset that is at the core of IMF's operations with our members since 1969. The discussion will explore importance of SDRs within the international monetary system, examine allocations of SDRs, common uses, look at the key topics that are addressed in the course for our participants. The session will then wrap up in an expert conversation with Mr. Ogata, who will discuss Japan's experiences in SDR, and the IMF staff, who will be presenting the course. We hope that this conversation inspires you to become part of the community of IMF learners who have already benefited from this course. You should also have received a flyer in the package containing registration link to the SDR online course, and I hope you will take a moment to review it at your convenience. And now, it is my great pleasure to welcome Ms. Jane Buru, Division Chief in the Finance Department, who will guide you through the program. Jane, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you all here. We hope that you find this presentation about the SDR interesting, so interesting that you actually sign up for the course. So we in Finance Department, developed this course in collaboration with ICD. Following the SDR allocation, we had a lot of questions about the SDR. And so we wanted to put together this course to discuss what is the SDR and how it works for many of the operations. So I'll just provide a brief overview about the SDR here. So we know, as Michaela has said, that the SDR is an international reserve asset. The SDR as an asset derives its value from the fact that it can be exchanged into freely usable currencies. The SDR is also used as a unit of account by the IMF and by many other IFIs. So one of the questions is, why are SDRs created? And the SDR is created and is allocated to IMF members in the SDR department to supplement other international reserve assets. It is there to provide when there's a global need to provide additional reserve assets. The SDR is allocated to IMF members in proportion to their quota. The SDR is a basket of currencies, and this basket is reviewed every 5 years. The currency weights are set at the 5-year mark, but actually they fluctuate on a day-to-day basis depending on the currency movements daily. We also have the SDR interest rate, which is calculated weekly and is published on the IMF website every Monday morning. SDRs, as I said, are allocated to IMF members who are participants of the SDR department, which is currently all the IMF members. SDRs can also be held by the IMF itself and by official entities that we call prescribed holders. Official entities are entities that the IMF Executive Board approves to hold SDRs. For example, the World Bank would be a prescribed holder in the SDR department. So this slide provides an overview of the SDR allocations over time. You can see that the largest SDR allocation was in 2021, where we had about 456 billion SDRs, which was equivalent to $650 billion. SDRs are only allocated under special conditions and criteria that are enshrined in the Articles of Agreement, and therefore we've only had a few allocations as indicated on this slide. This provides a snapshot of the current basket of currencies that are in the SDR basket. We have 5 currencies, and these were the weights that were set by the board in 2022, which was the last time we had the review of the basket. Of course, as I indicated, this sets the weights, but they would fluctuate slightly on a day-to-day basis because the valuation is based on the daily market of those currencies. We are publishing the SDR valuation rate every day on the IMF external web, and so it's available to all the users of the SDR. On this slide, I'll talk about the voluntary trading arrangements, but maybe before I talk a little bit about that, once the SDRs are allocated to members, they can use it in a wide range of operations that have been approved by the executive board. In this particular case, we talk about how members can exchange SDRs into currencies. It is one of the uses that members have for SDRs if they want to convert their SDRs into currencies. So here we highlight the voluntary trading arrangements, and this is what actually provides the liquidity to the SDR. And the voluntary trading arrangements are members and prescribed holders who stand ready to buy and sell SDRs against freely usable currencies. Currently, we have 41 VTAs, and the 41 VTAs are 39 members and 1 prescribed holder. The fund acts as an intermediary in this market, providing for an exchange between willing buyers and willing sellers. So we're very grateful to these members and prescribed holder who actually provide liquidity to the SDR so that members can be able to convert that reserve asset into currencies if and when they choose to do so. We provided this slide as a snapshot of how members actually use SDRs across the IMF entities, with the IMF itself, to settle some of their obligations for principal and interest, or how the IMF itself uses SDRs with the membership. So we would, for example, make some of our disbursements in SDRs, and we pay interest and other obligations of the IMF in SDRs to their members. And so we can see here that the SDR plays a central role in many of the operations, and that members actually do use SDRs as they choose. This is only a snapshot. In the course, you would find many other examples of how members have used the SDRs, and in particular, how they used the 2021 SDR allocation. So this is again just a snapshot of what you would learn in the SDR course, what the SDR is, why it was created, and how they are allocated. Also, the composition of the SDR basket is discussed in greater detail during the course. We also discuss what is the SDR interest rate, the 3-month instruments that are used to determine that. There's more detail about those elements during the course. And so we really encourage you all to sign up. It's been very successful, and you will learn a lot about the SDR. So this brings me to the end of my introduction to this course. We hope you can all sign up. But what we will do now is Mr. Ogata and I will have a short discussion, and then we will open up for questions. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mr. Ogata.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Ogata, in 2021, Japan received about SDR 29 billion, equivalent to about US dollars 42 billion in SDRs. Could you please share with us how Japan used this SDR allocation?
Yes. Well, as you said, we have received the allocation of SDR, and as explained, the allocation is according to the quota share of the fund. So we received those SDRs, but it is just added to our foreign reserves, and some of the foreign reserves will just remain there. Of course, it is really important reserve assets, but as you can imagine, that we are not intending to use all of those reserve assets as a foreign reserve. So some of the partner countries believe that we can make better use of this allocated SDR. So we have established the global target of channeling those SDRs to up to 200 billion. And then accordingly, we have first set a target of 20% of allocation will be rechanneled to other uses. And then later we increased that target to 40%. So we have decided to reallocate allocated to SDR, one to the RST and the other for the PRGT, altogether 40% of the allocation. So we have committed that, and then we have actually already reallocated those SDR to those two vehicles.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your generous contribution to the PRGT and to the RST through SDR channeling. And indeed, your support is very instrumental to the fund in supporting low-income and middle countries. Perhaps you can share with us, why is it so important for Japan to support these initiatives for the fund, particularly to support the fund's work to low-income countries and to middle-income countries? What motivates you to do this?
Sure. I can spend an hour, but in short, as one of the major shareholders of the fund, we believe that the fund should remain relevant to all the memberships. And the membership's challenge has evolved over time. In the far past, the fund is there to support membership facing the short-term BOP difficulties, and you identify the internal policies that is making the BOP difficult, and then you adjust that policies, and in the meantime you provide financing assistance in the short term. And then if you fix that problems, and you fix the BOP difficulties, and the fund will get away. That's the basic model in the past, but the challenges that the membership faces has become more complex and more intertwined and more structural. So the short-term period that fund faces becomes much longer. That's why we need PRGT independent of the DGRA. So the fund cooperation is made out through the DGRA, but we needed some additional vehicle called the PRGT. So the PRGT operation is quite important to us, and that's why Japan has been the top supporter of the PRGT. Then naturally, when we received the SDR allocations, we thought that this is the good opportunity for us to expand our support to the PRGT, and through PRGT we can support the low-income countries. Now the RST is slightly different. That's the resilient and sustainability trust. We see that in addition to low-income countries, there are some other countries that are facing slightly different challenges, like the climate change or pandemic. Those challenges are not, the endogenous. That's coming from outside. That's external shock to those countries, and that's not necessarily the operations that fund has been supporting too. So we thought that it would be good to establish a new mechanisms to help the membership facing those exogenous challenges. And then the solutions to that challenge is since the source of the cause is exogenous, you cannot fix your internal policy to fix that. But you can make your economic system more resilient against those exogenous external shocks. So that's where we thought that the fund can intervene. So we established the RST. And then again, we thought that the allocated SDR is quite instrumental in launching this new RST.
Thank you so much. And again, we thank you for your generous contributions to the PRGT and the RST. Thank you so much. So if that's okay, we would like to open now the floor for questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your contributions to PRGT and RST. 3 quick questions. What feedback have you received from the course so far? And was the course designed with authorities or staff in mind, or both? And lastly, there's discussion on the 17th review of quotas. When that happens, what changes do you expect or not to the SDR, or the impact of the review of quotas? Thank you.
Thank you. I think on the course we have had very positive feedback. It was a very successful launch, which was this year. Of course, it was the first year, so we expect to see more participants. Very successful, and we received a lot of comments which said that it helped demystify the SDR for a lot of participants, so that was very well received. I think on the specific question on the quotas, or was it designed
or authorities, or both?
for both? For both, it's available for both. I think it would be valuable for everybody, as Mr. Ogata explained. The value of the online training is for all, and so it's beneficial for everybody who wants to learn more about the SDR. And on the quota increase, the GRA and the SDR department are 2 separate legal entities, and so that would be an independent discussion. But of course, members can use SDRs to settle their quota payments once the quota becomes effective.
Can I say one
And then,
thing?
of course,
Yes, to supplement that, I think the 16th GRQ is general review of quota is more relevant than 17th, because in the 16th we have decided to increase the quota by 50%. So it's the 1.5 the increase of the quota. So everybody gets the 50% increase, all the membership. And then it's not the new allocation of SDR, but the more SDR you have, then more opportunity you have. The U means the countries like Japan have to contribute that to initiatives like PRGT. So as I mentioned, that the PRGT existed before the 21 allocation of the new SDRs, and then we can utilize the SDR to provide the source of financing for the fund, to provide PRGT to provide the financing. The fund or the trust cannot borrow from the market, so somebody has to provide the financing. The SDR can be used for that purposes. So generally speaking, the more SDR you have, the members have, the more opportunities you have to use that through PRGT.
Thank you. Maria Camila from ICD. Thank you both for highlighting the value of online training and for that sneak peek into SDR training. My question is for Ms. Rogata, if I may. From Japan's perspective, what would be some capacity development topics or areas that should be prioritized to better support the needs of member countries?
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very good question. Well, there are so many important areas, but at this point in time, I think I can name two of them. The one is a more traditional one, the debt management. That's quite important areas for the capacity development. The countries, like the many low-income countries, are facing elevated amount of debt, and then debt service cost is increasing, and that is weighing on their budget and their economy. So we have to manage the debt really effectively. And then to do so, the debt management capacity is really important for membership. So Japan is so keen to support those countries facing debt issues. But more in general, I think the MD recently launched the initiative called the DRMI, the Domestic Resource Mobilization Initiative. The DRM, the Domestic Resource Mobilization, is quite important. Not because that sometimes people ask us that you are trying to save your money, and then you are asking the recipient to raise its own revenue. So the DRM is, of course, raising its own revenue. But we are not arguing that we would like to save our money. The DRM is so important that if you have more capacity, DRM capacity, then more money will flow in. Look at the private sector capital. They are looking at the capacity of the countries. They are investing in the countries. And if they are capable of mobilizing its own resources and they can do more public services, then that country looks more attractive for the private sector. Even for the official public sectors, we will be more comfortable in putting our money into that countries if that countries have sound macroeconomic policies. So all those reasons, the DRM is I think, centerpiece of the sound macroeconomic policies. Therefore, we will join with the DMD to support this MDR initiative, and that I think is one of the most important areas for the capacity development activities.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. It seems very interesting course. One of the recent use of the SDR that was recently allowed is the rechanneling of SDRs to the multilateral development banks. Is this topic covered in the course? And one question to the Vice Ministry is, recently the IMF approved rechanneling to MDBs up to 15 billion SDRs. How Japan sees that we actually can make this rechanneling possible? Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So on the use of SDRs for the acquisition of hybrid capital from MDBs, so this specific element is not covered in the SDR course, because in the course we cover broadly all the possible uses, and so we don't dig specifically into one use. There is a lot of information available on the website. We have that paper that was issued shortly after the new prescribed operation was approved. And so this is the main avenue if you want to get a deep dive into how members can actually use SDRs for the acquisition of hybrid capital. The website has a great has the paper and additional information on that.
And thank you for the question. Yes, the rechanneling the SDR through MDB is one of our priorities. I'm saying that this is one of our priorities. Is that the SDR is important reserve asset, and if you rechannel reserve assets, then naturally you think about the IMF. But once you receive SDR and it becomes your reserve assets, then in the case of Japan, I cannot give you the details, but we have many different currencies at our foreign reserves. We have to invest that currencies. Of course, it has to be the safe and the liquid for the foreign reserves, but we have to invest our foreign reserves. And then one of the investment opportunity is the instrument issued by MDB. So we can purchase that as our investment as a foreign reserve. If we can structure the rechanneling in that way, then we can invest in the instruments issued by the MDB, and then MDB can issue that instrument at the low cost, virtually the SDR interest rate. That's the weighted average of the interest of the five the component currencies. So in short, the MDB can have access to low interest financing sources. And then MDB can utilize that low cost financing for their development assistance purposes. So theoretically that could work. So that's why we are pursuing that opportunity as our priorities. But from our perspective, to that scheme to work, the instrument that MDB issues has to be safe from our perspective. So the risk has to be reasonably diversified. And then if something wrong happens to our economy, I hope not, but if that happens, then that's why we hold the foreign reserves. We have to utilize that foreign reserves. So we cannot provide the permanent capital to MDB, for example. If something happens, we have to take it back and use that for our own purposes. So it has to be liquid and it has to be safe. So there are many the difficulties in implementation, but theoretically we think that that scheme could work, and that's why we are working together with the partner MDBs and the partner potential contributors to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was actually also going to ask about MDB rechanneling, but instead I'll ask, would Japan support a new issuance of SDRs, which the G77 have unanimously requested in the context of a combined and accelerating debt and climate crisis?
That's a very good and difficult question to answer. The SDR is a very important reserve asset, but we are calling that as a reserve asset because it has the reserve asset quality. But it's not necessarily an asset. If you say asset, for example, the cash, you can use for whatever purposes. But SDR is the man-made scheme, and then it is simply the right to borrow the international currencies at the low interest rate. And then we, the international community or the IMF, treats that as a reserve asset. That's what the SDR is. So it's the right to borrow, and then the other side of that right is that the obligation to lend. So somebody has to provide the hard currencies. Otherwise, the SDR would not work. So the more SDR issues and the more countries use SDRs, then there will be more lending by the issuers of the hard currencies. So there are certain limits to that operations. You cannot increase the SDR allocations infinitely. So we need to strike a good balance. On the one hand, the old membership needs to have a reasonable amount of the liquidity buffer through SDR. So there is a good reason that as the economy grows, then SDR should grow. But on the other hand, as I mentioned, that for the SDR to function, we need to contain the amount of SDR compared to all the issuance of the currencies. So we need to strike that good balance, and for that we need to have a good discussion among the memberships. So I don't think we have a straight answer, yes or no.
Maybe just to add that there is a specific criteria that is included in the Articles of Agreement that need to be met for the issuance of SDR allocations, and that is that there is, to add on to what Mr. Ogata says, that it's a reserve asset and that there is the need to supplement global reserve assets. So there's very specific criteria that needs to be met for the IMF to be able to issue additional SDRs. I think we had another question here.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a question which follows up the question about MDBs. And I was wondering, what is the main criteria that the IMF uses to approve prescribed holders of SDRs? Thank you.
Thank you. So according to the executive board rules, the prescribed holders have to be official entities. And so they are official sector entities. And there's a process of actually that admission. And we work with potential official entities to go through the process of admission into the SDR department. Ultimately, for entities to be approved as prescribed holders, there's an executive board approval that is required with a very high threshold of about 85%. And so that is all quite well laid out, again, on our website if you wanted to have more information about that. But the threshold is 85% and only for official entities. Thank you. I think that's it. Well, thank you so very much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you found it informative and that you will take the opportunity to register for the course. And we are always available for any questions, further questions that you may have. Thank you so much for joining us today.